The Jaws of Cetus, Miracles and Memories. Within 30 minutes of the mutiny, the Tyranids had stormed New Rynn City. Thousands of lesser organisms led the charge, overwhelming what few guardsmen held out in the southern half of the city. Gene stealers and cultists threw open bomb shelters and hideaways beneath municipal buildings, inviting their masters to a slaughter of men, women, and children who could do nothing to defend themselves against the hive fleet. Carnifexes and trigons tore through the streets, smashing vehicles and statues to ruin in their hunt for foes to slay, while hive tyrants and zoanthropes conducted the swarm from above. All the sisters could hear was screaming. Despite the impulse, they continued away from the carnage. "Clear," Ruth called, she and Judith leading the way out of the alley. Rebecca shifted about, doing her best to keep Bianca steady as she and Veronica followed after the first two. The wounded hospitaller gave a moan, whether from pain or the cocktail of drugs Rebecca had to administer to keep her lucid, but the sisters could not stop to tend to her. "Not yet. How much further until we reach the river?" Veronica asked. "The river Rynn is still several blocks away," Naomi said from the rear. "Hopefully the Tyranids have not cut off our escape, or we'll have to swim for it. Given our circumstances, I think that will only make things worse." Rebecca replied. "You should leave me," Bianca slurred. "I'm dying anyway, leave me and save yourselves from the swarm." "We're not leaving you, Bianca," Veronica snapped. "Don't think like that. We'll get you to friendly lines, and then find a doctor to help you. I am a doctor, and I should know when one is beyond saving." Bianca coughed, a small drop of blood falling on Rebecca's shoulder. "Please, for your sakes, leave me." "No," Rebecca fixed Bianca with a stare. "We're going to get you help. Just hold on for a little longer." Bianca returned Rebecca's stare with doubt, but said nothing more before gunfire erupted from behind them. "Contact rear!" Naomi bellowed, ducking behind a wrecked car as she fired down the lane. Beyond, Rebecca could see a smaller swarm of gaunts led by several warriors. The larger organisms screeched as they spotted the sisters, the gaunt strains swarming about as they fired their own bioweapons at their targets. "Rebecca, Veronica, continue on. Judith and Ruth, with me, we might be able to slow them down for a moment." "But Sister Naomi," Rebecca started. "No arguing. Go, now." Naomi let out another burst of fire, joined soon by Ruth as the two sisters fell back to assist the superior. Rebecca hesitated, chewing her lip for a moment as she watched her fellows dig in to stall the swarm, but a shift from Veronica told her it was time to keep moving. "Please, Empress," she whispered. "Don't let it end like this, not for any of us." No sooner had Rebecca finished her prayer that she heard a roar from overhead. Two green-painted aircraft swept down from the buildings, weapons blazing as they targeted the Tyranids beyond. The warriors shrieked before assault cannons shredded through them and their minions, the Tyranids falling into disarray under the assault. The two aircraft slowed, engines shifting as they dropped into hovering mode, and Rebecca could not help but smile as she saw their insignias. The white dragon of the salamanders. The Asteroids had come to their rescue. Rebecca and Veronica slowed, just as a squad of space marines came hurrying up the lane. The silhouette of Meershen was easy to identify, the Forge Father's scale cloak flapping in the downdraft produced by the attack aircraft. "See, Bianca? We'll get you help, you'll see." "I don't want to be too harsh, Rebecca," Bianca said weakly. "But you are wasting your strength on me." Rebecca's smile slipped, but only slightly. Meershen's squad moved past them to relieve Naomi, Ruth, and Judith, the Forge Father himself stopping before Rebecca and Veronica. "Your medic is injured?" he asked, his voice soft. "She was struck by a mutant during the defense of the wall." Rebecca explained. She's in a bad way, but we can help her." "No doubt," Meershen said. "Where are the others?" "Miss Tara and Lord Mashes." Rebecca's smile finished falling, her blood running cold. She stood in silence for several moments before Naomi spoke up from behind her. "Tara and the Inquisitor took a day to inspect the spaceport," she said. "We have not been in contact with them since." "Then we are at a crisis," Meershen said, moving past the sisters and looking down the road. "The Tyranids have overrun the spaceport and the southern half of the city, and more are advancing in by the hour. My brothers and I have set up defensive lines along the northern banks of the river, but our forces are spread thin even with the guard fleeing north." He looked back to Rebecca. "There is a medical facility where we may treat your friend. A storm raven is just around the corner, go before she falls further." "Thank you, Lord Asteroots." Rebecca nodded. "Come on, Bianca, just hold out for a little longer." Bianca did not respond, her head hanging limp. "Bianca! Bianca, can you hear me?" Mirshen stepped up, gently placing a hand against Bianca's neck. "Your friend is fading fast," Mirshen said. "I would advise you make her comfortable for her last moments." Rebecca's breath became choppy, even as Veronica eased Bianca down to the ground. "Bianca," Rebecca said, taking the hospitaler's hand in her own. "Bianca, please focus on me. We're almost to safety, we'll get you help." "It's too late for that," Bianca whispered, giving a weak cough. "Rebecca, promise me you will protect Angelique." "No. No, you'll be fine," Rebecca cried. "It's just a little further, then we can get you to a healer." But Bianca gave no reply, her hand falling limp in Rebecca's grasp. Tears filled Rebecca's eyes, her jaw aching as she tried to hold back sobs. "Rebecca," Naomi said, placing a hand against Rebecca's backpack. "We need to keep moving. We will have vengeance for Bianca, but that will do us no good if we are overrun." "No," Rebecca said, tears dripping down her face. I am not leaving her here. Not like this." She reached out, pressing against Bianca's chest in an effort to keep her heart beating. Nothing, but that did little to slow Rebecca. "Not like this. Not like this." Just as Rebecca started another round of compressions, a brilliant flash filled her vision. Warm energy spilled over the sister, her entire body tingling as it flowed through her. She let out a small gasp, joined by a much deeper one from Sister Bianca as the hospitaler spasmed, coughing several times before the light faded away. The last thing Rebecca saw was an image like that of a small insect, fading until it was just her and the others again. I'm alive?" Bianca asked, her legs twitching as she moved back. "I can feel my legs again. What did you do?" I don't know." Rebecca started, giving a small yelp before her hand flew to her throat. What happened to my voice?" "Rebecca," Ruth breathed. You brought her back from the dead. Look. Your arm." Rebecca looked down at her arms. Her left arm, from the elbow down, was now clad in a golden narthecium, the helix engraving replaced by a small pink gem cut in the shape of the insect from her vision. She turned her arm over, blinking as if the narthecium would vanish as soon as it arrived, but it remained fixed to her armor. She stammered. "I wanted to heal Bianca, but this is a miracle!" Ruth cried, quickly making the sign of the Aquila before continuing. "To think, my sister-in-arms has been blessed by the Empress in such a way. Truly, her hand is mighty that lifts my sister into the esteemed ranks of Celestine and Sabbat, a saint of the Imperium." Rebecca's face flushed. I wouldn't go that far," she stammered, but all conversation was cut off by a shriek from the south. "It seems the Tyranids have taken notice," Mirshen said, reaching out to help Bianca back to her feet. "We must hurry. The storm raven is waiting for you." The sisters nodded, Ruth and Veronica leading the way while Bianca stepped towards Rebecca. "Saint or not," the hospitaler started. "Thank you, Rebecca. I have often thought of my death, but I am glad that it was held off for just a little longer." You're welcome, Sister Bianca," Rebecca said, retrieving her bolter before continuing. "I cannot say I really understand what I did, but if it were not for your help I doubt I could have done any of this." The two said nothing more as a screech echoed down the road. Rebecca turned, spotting a few Tyranids tentatively picking through the rubble, the salamanders' storm talons shifting their engines to bring their guns to bear. "Let's make sure you live to use such power again." Harlequins. Mashes had not encountered many Eldar during his time in the Inquisition. Explored some of their ruins, yes. Fiddle with some of their technology, yes. But never before had he stood face to face with one, much less one of the Harlequins. And yet here was one, and it had just greeted Terra as if she were an old friend. Not that she returned the sentiment. "Where are we?" Terra snapped, bringing her sword to bear. "What do you want with me?" "There is nothing that I specifically want," the Harlequin said, almost playfully pushing Terra's sword away with its hand. "But as to where we are, we have entered a small path on the webway. I will lead you back to your forces and away from the great devourer." "Why?" Mashes asked, keeping his bolt pistol at his side. "Your kind has always had its motives when dealing with humanity, most of them to our detriment. Why go through this trouble instead of leaving us to die with the Tyranids?" "That is not the question you need to be asking, Inquisitor," the Harlequin looked to him, Mashes doing his best not to cringe as the twisted mask met his eye. "The question you must ask is, what do you prize most, the survival of the Imperium, or your own zealotry? I am willing to deal with you for as long as possible, alien," Mashes said, eyes narrowing. "But if during our dealings you prove yourself untrustworthy, I will not hesitate to kill you where you stand." "When did I say that it was against me that you would be weighing your devotion?" Mashes hesitated, the Eldar turning its gaze back to Terra. "But we have tarried long enough, haven't we, Twilight Maiden? Come, I will lead you back to your fellows." And with that the Harlequin started off down the path, its steps making no noise as it glided across the wraithbone floor. "Orders, my lord," Nikolai said from behind Mashes. He said nothing, clenching his jaw before stepping up to Terra. "It seems to have an interest in you," Mashes said. "What do you want to do?" "What else can we do?" Terra said, lowering her sword. "I'd teleport us, but this place feels like a magic superconductor, there's no telling if my spells would just fizzle out, send us thousands of light years off target, or explode violently. We'll just need to follow and hope for the best." A terrible idea, if Mashes had to be honest, but they had few options now. "Lead on," then he said, storing his power sword while Terra started after the Harlequin, or at least, where the Harlequin appeared to be, for all Mashes knew the Xenos was standing just off to his left, and the one leading them was an illusion to lure them into a trap. "Stay calm, then you can assess the situation," he thought. The path before them was dark, winding. It curved gently along, rising and falling with every step they took, and Mashes could not find a straight line of reference anywhere he looked. Terra seemed to be frustrated as well, though whether from the geography of the webway or the enigma that was their guide he could not say. Time and again she made to speak, but the words appeared to die in her mouth as soon as they had come. Still, there were questions Mashes would like to have answered. "Terra," he said, looking down at her. "Why did you seem so familiar with this alien?" Terra paused, her jaw tightening for a moment before she spoke. She said. "It started appearing in my dreams, after Caesarea. Never consistently, and never for too long, but it was there." Terra shuddered. "Those were always the worst ones. Why didn't you tell me about this?" he asked. "If these aliens were assaulting you in your dreams, maybe I could have helped." "I didn't know what to do, Mashes," Terra shook her head. "I was dealing with a lot then, and you were busy with the fighting. I didn't want to be a bother to you all." Mashes fell silent. Terra had improved since Caesarea, but to what extent? Did she still think with the mind of the vulnerable young woman Mashes had seen sobbing in the belly of a ruined tank? Was there a part of her innocence that still remained? "It is no crime to ask questions, even if you do not wish to hear the answer," the Harlequin said, Mashes now noting the alien had shifted a meter to the right. "You yourself have had plenty of questions about the Twilight Maiden, yet you fear what answer you might receive. Why do you keep calling her Twilight Maiden?" Alexis asked. "Some weird Xenos superstition." "Superstition is irrational fear based on questions about the unknown," the Harlequin said, its voice now directly behind them even though Mashes knew it had not moved. "But then, you step into the unknown every day, do you not? A pity that it will lead to your destruction." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Alexis, you know the Eldar isn't going to give you a straight answer," Mashes snapped. "Stop trying to provoke it until after we've left the webway." "Trouble, Inquisitor?" the Harlequin asked. "Nothing you need to concern yourself with, alien." "Of course," the Harlequin continued to move on. "Why would I seek to challenge a martyr? Mashes hesitated. The temptation to shoot the Harlequin returned, Mash's finger tightening around the trigger of his bolt pistol, but soon the feeling passed. He walked on, though he found himself drawing closer to Tara the further they walked. Minutes passed in silence. Then, as Mashes and the other rounded yet another corner, he heard a whisper. It was faint, nothing more than a fleeting sound, but soon it returned, gaining more volume the closer they drew. "No way we could have found the herald so soon," the voice echoed. It took a moment for Mashes to realize it was Alexis' voice, echoing a conversation they had years ago. "The chances are low, sure enough," Mashes' own voice said. Now, he could see a shadow drifting by, him and the two Valhallans standing before a comm station aboard the Sanguinium Martyrs. "But this is the best lead we've gotten so far. We make for Tau space in the morning." "Mashes," Tara whispered. "Did you see that?" "In your tongue, this place is known as the Path of Memories," the Harlequin said, now standing on a ridge just above Mashes. "The Wraithsingers that crafted this path poured so much of their psychic energy into manipulating the Wraithbone that it gained the ability to feel the minds of those that passed through. Your memories will drift, but perhaps some may linger." The alien looked to Tara. "Even if you do not want them to." Tara swallowed, shying away from the gaze of the alien. "It's just trying to taunt you, Tara," Mashes wanted to say. "Ignore it and let's keep moving." But the words died in his mouth, reassurance being nothing more than hollow conjecture for Tara and the Valhallans. "I hate this place." They walked on, more memories drifting in and out of their vision. "Sorry Alexis, but I have a girlfriend, you are a failure of a soldier, and I should shoot you now, she's made time before." She's made time," Mashes shook his head, looking to where the Harlequin was walking. "I suppose asking you why you took us down this path is only going to get a cryptic answer." "What is that saying you humans like to pass around?" the Harlequin asked. "Ah, yes, ask not the Eldar a question, for they will give you 3 answers, all of which are true and all of which are equally terrifying. If you already know the answer, why bother to ask? And the answer to the one question you wish to know is standing right before you." Mashes paused, one eyebrow raised. As he tried to make sense of what the alien told him, a new memory flickered across his vision. It was a small horse. A foal, with a purple coat and a small nub of horn jutting from its skull, a battered book clutched in some psychic field that followed behind it. Some Eldar pet, perhaps? That thought was dashed as he examined it closer, noting the 6-pointed starburst displayed prominently on its flanks. A starburst Tara now wore on her shoulder. "Princess Celestia," the foal cried, its voice a tinier version of Tara's own. Mashes watched as the memory darted into a room, where a larger equinoid with both wings and a horn rested. "Oh, good morning Twilight," the larger figure said, Mashes feeling his heart skip a beat or 5. "Empress. Your lessons are not for another hour. Is something wrong?" Spike was teething and he started chewing on this book." The foal held the book to the larger horse. "Can you fix it?" "No. Of course, Twilight." The older mare took the book. "This will only take a minute. Come, sit with me and I'll explain how the spell works." Mashes took a step back, shaking his head as the image shifted. "A Zeno's trick, nothing more." The damn Harlequin was trying to convince him of an impossibility, of treason. "Rainbow Dash." "Stop!" The foal, now a grown mare, held a light blue Pegasus in her magical grip. "Listen, Rainbow. I know you're upset with Applejack, but don't worry. Whatever it is that has come between you two, I'm sure that I, as a good friend, can help you resolve your problems." What are you talking about?" the Pegasus asked. "Oh, Rainbow Dash, you don't have to hide your feelings from me. I can tell you two must have had a terrible fight." The purple mare shoved the Pegasus onto a couch, pulling out a pen and paper as she continued. "Now, why don't you tell me all about your issues with Applejack?" This can't be happening." Mashes cried, drawing his pistol and aiming it at the vision. "What are you doing, Zenos?" "You wanted an answer," the Harlequin said from behind Mashes. "I warned you that you might not like it. Yesterday, I heard voices calling through the warp, warning me of some coming disaster." The image changed again. The older mare from before was now dressed in great armor, the Empress armor, and stood in an ornate room of stained glass. Apparently, I was the only one to hear it, and what is more troubling is that it did not originate from Equestria, but from my old universe. Who sent it? The mayor asked. Anyone that would be powerful enough to do something like this is dead or would wish to see me dead. If your greatest enemy warns you of coming danger, what does that say of the coming disaster? Mash's hand tightened, the bold pistol trembling in his hand. Lies, projections. The Harlequin had to be trying to trick him. There was no way Terra was a Xenos. A Xenos who bore the same mark she wore on her armor, who spoke in the same voice, who knew nothing of war, of humanity's struggle, who sought to mend relationships rather than fight. A Xenos who followed a being that spoke with the very words of the Empress of mankind. So, what does this have to do with me? Whatever awaits me, I must face it head-on before it can harm or destroy Equestria. That is why I am going back to the Imperium of mankind. And you are coming with me? No. Mashas raised his pistol and fired, unloading the weapon at the apparition. The image faded, the hellfire shells smashing apart Wraithbone without further damage. He would have reloaded had not someone grabbed his arm. Mashas. Mashas whipped around to see Terra looking at him, concern lacing her features. What's wrong? What did you see? Mashas choked. Had she not seen the visions? If they really were her memories, would she have worried that he might have seen them? He tried to say something, anything to allay her concern, but the Harlequin spoke first. Humans, always striving forward without concern of what lies ahead, it said. It is both your greatest strength and your greatest weakness. Though I would ask if you would kindly not destroy more of the webway than you already have. We do want to make this journey quick for all of you. A hiss of air caught Mash's attention, the Inquisitor shifting his eyes to see a second Harlequin standing next to him, twin swords aimed directly at his throat. How, he thought, before slowly lowering his pistol. It's nothing, he said finally. I got startled there for a moment. Let's keep moving. This seemed to placate Terra, the girl letting go of Mash's arm and resuming her trek through the webway. The Valhallans regarded Mashas for a moment, as if he were about to give them new orders, before they too started after the retreating form of the Empress student. Mashas knew he had to keep walking, lest he be lost on the webway forever, but he still found himself standing and looking at where the memory had faded. Now you know more of who the Twilight Maiden is, the Harlequin whispered in Mash's ear. She means more to you than just an enemy, or even a friend, even if you do not realize it just yet. Terra is not a Xenos, Mashas growled. And if all you are going to show me is lies, then you can just keep your visions to yourself. You say that, but down in your heart you know that the memories you glimpsed are true. The Harlequin drifted away. So ask yourself what truly matters more in your life, the fate of the Imperium, or your zealotry. Mashas said nothing. There was no point in arguing with the alien, especially if it was going to keep giving answers like that. Shooting it would just start a fight, and then where would that leave him or the Imperium? That was a question Mashas no longer knew the answer to. So he picked up his pace, hurrying to catch up with the others before they fell completely out of sight. The Valhallans kept their gaze forward, while Terra stood before what appeared to be an ornate wraithbone pillar. This will take us back to Rynn's world. The webway has many hidden gates, even those invisible to many of our kind, the Harlequin said. Hurry now, for the hour is late. The great devourer draws closer, and you have still not answered our question. But every time I try you just dash. Terra's words died in her mouth, for the Harlequin had vanished once more. It was just her, Mashas, and the Valhallans, all alone in the webway with only memories and broken wraithbone. Well, that was pleasant, Alexis muttered. Pity the Eldar weren't interested in any good memories. We've seen enough already. Nikolai countered. Terra stepped up to the pillar, gently placing her hand against the wraithbone. It shimmered, small trails of light running up her armor before she pulled her hand back. My magic feels more normal here, she said. Maybe the Eldar was right and this is safe. She was about to step through when Mashas spoke. Terra, wait, she turned, giving another concerned look. What is it, Mashas? She asked. There was a long pause, Mashas trying to think of a better way to open the discussion besides, are you really a Xenos? The Valhallans looked between the two of them, all waiting for what Mashes had to say. What truly matters more in your life, the fate of the Imperium, or your zealotry? Back there, he started, licking his lips. When I fired, I saw some of your memories. Oh? Tara asked, concern deepening. Nothing too bad, though? I know some of my memories have been a bit rough, especially after all I've been through. Mashes stopped again. I just want to know one thing. Mashes met Tara's gaze with his own. There was no malice, no joy of deceiving a servant of the Imperium, just concern, innocence, the same look he had seen countless times since he found her and the Empress. A gaze so familiar, yet so alien at the same time. The Eldar often try to deceive us to follow their parameters, he said. I want to know, who do you serve? Another pause, Tara's head inclining as she thought. Mashes found his hand drifting towards another magazine of hellfire shells, his finger brushing against the metal. Finally Tara spoke. I've seen so much pain, distrust, she said. I've seen people completely detached from all that they see, who care not when their friends and loved ones are torn asunder by weapons of great power. Then she smiled. But I have seen many good things as well. Courage, honor, men and women who rise to the challenge to save those who cannot help themselves. I've seen those who have punished themselves for their past sins find redemption, evil turned back by righteousness, and wounded souls take the first steps towards healing. Tara stepped forward, gently taking Masha's hand in her own. I serve the Empress first and foremost, you know, she said. The Imperium has its faults, but it is still worth fighting for. And I'm glad I have such good friends like you and the sisters to guide me in that fight, to stand by my side as we save mankind. Mashes blinked, his eyes darting between Tara and his hand. With another smile, Tara leaned in and gave Mashes a full hug, the Inquisitor's arms hanging limp as he tried to make sense of this. Thank you again, for everything, she said. All Mashes could do was blink, holding still even as Tara broke away from him. Now, we should go and see where that portal takes us. After you. Mashes said, waiting patiently until Twilight had stepped through the portal.